Thank you for joining us. Want to say hi? This is Coda, my beloved. Okay, and today we have a very special topic, which is why are Japanese so skinny? So I want to talk about this today because I am currently getting ready for a show. I have a show going on tomorrow in the city, and gotta do a little bit of prep, make sure tummy's on flat, in that little black dress. And it got me thinking, how is it that Japanese people are so slim? Hi, you guys. Hi. So yeah, that's what I want to be talking about today. That's what I'm going to talk about. So let us get started. I have a whole outline, so we're not going to miss a thing. Okay, so first, a little disclaimer. Japanese people are human beings, and human beings come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, as you guys are saying in the comments. We come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. So there's not just one body type that exists in Japan. You can see really like thin Japanese people. There are people who are like a little thicker, people who have like larger busts, and people who have big butts, people who are relatively flat all over. So there's lots of variation. However, I'm American, and compared to American women, Japanese women and Japanese people in general do tend to be a smaller frame. So we're going to talk about the reasons why. So I did a little bit of research for this, and it seems like the University of Minnesota did a study in 2006 around the rates of obesity and overweight individuals in America and in Japan. And US statistics show that 66.5% of Americans are overweight and 32% are obese. As opposed to Japan, where their rates are much lower as expected, 24.7% overweight and 3.6% obese. And this was 2006, so chances are it's gone higher for both countries just because, we out here in the 21st century. It's the year of our Lord 2020, so things have changed. However, one thing that stays the same is that Japanese people are just, in general, smaller than Americans. And that's something that I picked up on when I first moved to Japan. People were just, in general, a lot smaller. You do see a lot less obese people. People aren't outrageously tiny, but it's hard to find a lot of plus-size individuals. There aren't a lot of plus-size stores either. There was one that literally the name of the store was big size. It was like dai size or something like that for people of larger size. But a lot of those are catered to men as well, so it's a little sexist as well, but I digress. One of the biggest differences I think that keeps the Japanese people so lean is just the lifestyle difference. Our lives that we live here in America are drastically different from the lives of an average Japanese person. And I have a couple reasons why that I'll outline now. He's being so good, you guys. I was kind of worried. He is the energetic one, so he's definitely the yang to the yin. So I'm glad that he's doing well. Okay, continuing on. So the first thing that I noticed that's really different is the amount of activity that you get during the day. Japanese people, I think, take a lot more steps in their day than American people do. And I'll explain. So in America, we have the luxury of having a lot of cars. People usually get their license at 16. People are driving and, we're going from place to place via like Uber and Lyft and all these things. Whereas in Japan, there's usually one car per household, if that, and most people take public transportation. So people are getting up, sitting down, walking, standing, going from place to place. And I think that at the end of the day, they're taking considerably more steps than we do in America. So even if you have someone working an office job, like a salary man, that's what they call office workers in Japanese. If you're a salary man, chances are you're still taking more steps in your day than an American person would if they were working the same kind of job. So that's something to consider. And even when I was a teacher, I sat down for like an eighth of my time working. I was always standing up and jumping and dancing and singing, and it kept me really lean actually because you're just so active. But that's just an exception, I feel like that's teachers in general. It's quite an engaging job. I'm sure those of you know who know. So let's continue on. And the next thing, of course, is their diet. So when it comes to weight and body frame size and things like that, it all comes down to diet and exercise, right? Yeah, lifestyle is a big part of it, but it's what you're eating and what you're doing. You know, they call it KICO, calories in, calories out. And they're getting a lot less calories in. And that is mainly thanks to their diet. So Japanese diets are traditionally very healthy. People are really starting young as well. I was an English teacher, like I mentioned, and everyone eats school lunch. So no one brings lunches. No one's bringing chips and crackers and cookies, things packed by their mom. People don't do stuff like that. Everyone eats the same school lunch, and the school lunch is super healthy, you guys. Super healthy. There's always a carb, there's a vegetable, there's milk, and like maybe there's some fruit for dessert. And the whole concept of fruit for dessert is something that was new to me until I went to Japan. I did not realize people thought of fruit like that. I have this little story. I was eating this little jelly. It's like Jello with a little bit of fruit at the bottom. And I was bringing that in my lunch because I'm vegetarian, so I wasn't eating with all the kids. So I brought my little jelly, and one of the teachers was like, "Hey, Deidre, do you mind not bringing your little fruit jelly because the kids are getting jealous that you're getting dessert?" I'm like, "This is dessert?" I'm like, in America, that's just part of lunch. Some kids don't even like their Jello. Some kids don't even like their fruit. But here, all these little Japanese kids were like, "Oh my gosh, she's got grapes. Oh my gosh, she's got oranges. Oh my gosh, can I please have a tangerine?" Like, literally that kind of attitude. And it starts super early. It starts super young. Those kids are like 6, 7, 8. And just imagine compared to American kids where people are trying to trade, fruit by the foot for someone's Cheez-Its. It's just a totally different dialogue going on. So that's one thing. Another thing, the attitude around food is really different. The attitude around food. Food is seen as communal. People rarely eat alone. People aren't eating as really a form of comfort like I feel like we do in America. A lot of people, if you go through like a really bad breakup, people are like, "Oh, just all I need is Ben and Jerry," and like people have that kind of attitude, that kind of feeling around food. But in Japan, it's not like that at all. Food is communal, and every single day, I was eating lunch with those kids. And there would be days where I'm just like, I just want to eat by myself. I just want to like have my food. I just want to eat by myself. And days where I'd go alone, the kids would be like, "Where were you? You were supposed to be at lunch today." So it's very communal. And even now that I work at a Japanese company, all of the women in the company at 2 o'clock, everyone goes to the small conference room and everyone's eating together. So it's not even just a school thing. It's a people thing. Like food is for sharing. You share the experience of eating. You don't see people like getting a bunch of food to eat by themselves. Everyone eats together. Yeah. It's eating alone does hit different, but sometimes you just want to be by yourself. But eating is not a time to be by yourself. That's the thing. Like they don't see it that way, which is interesting, because I find that here everyone, like at least in the States, people go out for lunch, people go in like to different places. They don't eat at where they are. They leave and go somewhere else. So that's really interesting. Yeah, so there's a lot less solo eating in general. Thank you for those of you who have come. Just touching on our topic of the day. Let's continue. Next is the kind of food that they eat that is considered traditional. Their traditional food. When you look at traditional ethnic food, for example, let's just go to the States. African Americans, our like traditional food is soul food. That is seen as like the food of people of color, African Americans like myself. And what is soul food? Soul food is fried chicken. Soul food is mac and cheese. Soul food is, you guys, the comments, collard greens, peas, sweet potato pie. Just all of this calorific, just calorie dense food in general. And it's lacking in a lot of nutritional value. I'm sorry, you guys, but if you cook your greens to the point where they turn gray, it has lost its nutritional value. I am sorry to be the one to break it. But that's something that exists in the Black community. But as far as Japanese traditional foods go, you have all of these traditional like sushi that they make that have, vegetables and fish, and it's not fried, it's all steams. They have different things, like there's something called takuan, which is like, I don't want to say it's Japanese kimchi, but it is pickled radish, and it is so good. But it's so good for you, And I think that's a big difference as well. When people think of getting together with the family to have a traditional meal, it's not a bunch of fried, greasy food that came out of a bag. Not saying that food comes out of a bag, bit my tongue there. But it's just in general a lot healthier, just a well-rounded meal as opposed to some other traditional foods, So yeah, that's another thing I noticed. Something interesting along with exercise. Oh, konnichiwa. Something interesting surrounding exercise that I noticed is that people don't go to the gym in Japan. Isn't that odd? People in Japan don't really go to the gym. There are gyms, of course, but it's difficult to find one. And I've mentioned in some previous videos that the gym in general is not something that a lot of people commit to like they do in the States. There's a big gym culture here in America. People are always trying to go there and get swole and, trying to be thick with 2 C's and all these things. But in Japan, that's not like the standard. People, their size is mainly based on the fact that they get their activity through their day. Like I mentioned before, with just getting like all those steps and eating all that healthy food, and that's what keeps them lean. They don't eat like a bunch of junk and try and like work it off, as opposed to like kind of how we do. Yeah, and also the social standard for thinness and like thickness is very different in Japan as well. What I've noticed is that for being a normal sized person, like normal in Japan is thin. Like that is their idea of normal by Japanese standards. If you're an American person or a foreign person, someone who's not Japanese, they're not going to hold you to this standard. But if you want to get more details, I have a video on this as well. But for Japanese people, a normal body is a thin body. And an overweight body is a thicker body, thick by American standards. So if you were to have a normal person in America, like normal by American standards, so basically someone who's not obese, that person could still be viewed as like being really chubby. And also, in the same kind of tone, someone who is like underweight or like kind of on that bridge of like between being between normal weight and underweight, that could be considered still very normal, as opposed to here in America, where when people start getting really skinny, people start saying like, oh, the wind can blow you away and all these things. I've got a little personal story. So being in Japan and living that Japanese lifestyle did lean me out quite a bit. I want to say I lost, around like 16 pounds just being there and like living the life and kind of like not necessarily dieting, but just living that kind of lifestyle as opposed to being here. And when I came back, everyone was so worried about me, like quite literally worried that I had lost like a lot of weight. But the thing is, the lifestyles are so different that you're kind of going to lose it regardless. Just like how I've had some Japanese friends in college particularly who got like really chunky just by not necessarily changing anything. I'm sure that in their eyes, they're kind of living the way that they would have, but just by being in America and living our typical American lifestyle, they just packed on pounds naturally. So there's that to consider as well. It's very interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of other factors I'm sure you can think of, but those are the major ones that I noticed. And that's the big reason why they're so lean. It just goes to their lifestyle, their day to day, what they're doing, what they're putting in their mouth, and yeah, the kind of life that they lead. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, the floor is open. I'm going to try and keep this open. I want to say 20 minutes. I'm going to try and aim for 20. So if you guys have any questions, I'm going to run through these comments, get through those, and we'll get out of here. All right, but hello to everyone who has come in. Thank you for staying this far. I see a lot of hearts. Yes, so Shy Kai says, what about those underweight? Like I mentioned, being underweight is not necessarily seen as a bad thing. There's a lot of people who are like technically underweight that are considered normal. Like they wouldn't get double looks on the street. They wouldn't get double takes on the street. It's just a different idea of what's normal. 000111 says they don't eat junk food. Actually, they do. There's tons of junk. Actually, I think in the world, they've got like the second highest amount of McDonald's restaurants per square mile, per square kilometer, something like that. They've got a lot of junk. They've got a ton of junk. And their junk is delicious, I'll say that. But their portions are also really small. And that's another factor as well. Their portions in general are just very, very petite. So in America, when you come here, when you order something at a restaurant, chances are you get like a large portion, enough that you can maybe finish on your own if you're really, really hungry, or it's enough that you can take home. But in Japan, it's usually just enough for you to finish, and that's it. So there's tons of videos like this. Like McDonald's comes to mind. If you look at the McDonald's size comparisons in America and Japan, they're very different. You can fill an American large can overflow a Japanese large, as far as like fountain drinks go. So yeah, there's that to consider. Let's see. Seikon Talk says, when is proper alone time in Japan? Proper alone time as far as eating, I'd say, is in your own home. But most Japanese people eat with others, like most of the time. And it's considered a nice thing to go out to eat with someone. People really aim to eat together. Like it's just a thing they do, really. I don't know how else to explain it. For me, it doesn't make a whole ton of sense. It's not my first instinct. I mean, as I mentioned to you guys, my first instinct is like, okay, if it's time to eat, I'm a balance. But no, like eating time is also with everyone else. So it's just a different standard. So yeah. Yes, Jodro. Yes, come on. Jambalaya, gumbo, red beans and rice. Po' boys, funnel cake, if I'm being nice. Okay. See, we got all these things. Nohana Shigatsu says, I've wondered what Japanese people think of Mexicans. I'm Mexican and a bit of a darker side skin color. I don't think they think of you really any differently than any other foreigner. I'm sure they'd see you just as another foreigner. So don't worry, they're not going to single you out. Is Duolingo good to learn Japanese? I've never used it, so I wouldn't know. Sorry. Seikon says, people in New York are much thinner than people in Atlanta, where I grew up, and I see more old people being really active in New York on the subway and in the park. Yeah, I'd say in big cities, because I'm in California, so people in LA, it's funny, because there's like pretty, and then there's like LA pretty, so there's people who have, where people are a lot more, they concentrate on their looks a ton. The standard is so much higher for beauty. And even for me as well, like I thought I was Gunma pretty, but I was like, damn, am I Tokyo pretty? That's a whole different ball game right there. I was like, dang, that's something to think about. But it's true. I don't blame you. It sounds like it's feasible, honestly. Let's continue. So are there any thick Japanese? Yes, there are. Believe me. I told my older sister today, we literally were talking about this. I was telling her I had this video coming on. And I was telling her, like, yeah, I've seen some thick Japanese girls, like, not necessarily thick as in, like, their body weight was higher, but thick as in, like, the way that they carry the weight was very, like, reminiscent of, like, thick Americans. When we say thick, you think, the bosom is, overflowing, the waist is super snatched, and, like, the booty is popping. I saw a couple people like that, and I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh man, you are in the wrong country, my dude. You need to go to America because they'll be all over you. But yeah, it's just a different standard for beauty, Let's see. Continuing on. Yeah, oh my gosh, Chatty Cathy. You will do 20,000 steps. Go to Tokyo, you will get your steps in. Believe me, even on the train, because the train, most of the time, there's like no sitting room if you're in Tokyo. You're just standing. And I lived an hour away from like the city center. I was standing for like an hour just to go there and standing for an hour just to get back. And that's more than some people even do in a day. So it's it's just a different lifestyle, really. Well, for a gang in here, gang gang. Are people interested in dating foreigners? Yes. So community eating is important. I wondered about the family style eating. Yeah, it's very important. And one thing that I noticed is that people, when you're eating in a family, people have like all those plates of food right in the center, and then you have your small plate and you just take what you want. It's not like, here's your plate, here's my plate, there's your plate, let's eat. It's like, okay, like here's all this food, take what you want. And when it comes to eating food, like you're supposed to talk and connect with each other. Um, I'm just gonna flashbacks. So back at school, when I was being an English teacher, I was in my 5th grade class and I was eating lunch. They pushed all the desks together and we were all eating. And it was my turn to eat with someone, with this certain group of kids, a certain cluster of kids in class. So I was just eating. I was like, and the teacher was like, talk to them. I'm like, I gotta talk to them too. I'm like, are you serious? I can't just eat my food. I'm already here. This isn't enough. No, it's not enough. It's not enough. You have to talk. You have to connect with someone. You have to connect with who you're eating with. It's very communal. Yeah, that's the way it is with a lot of African families as well. My family's Cameroonian. Seikon talks Ethiopian family. Ethiopia likes family eating. Same way in Cameroon too. People like it. Ah, Nakamura-san, genki desu yo. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to say. If you guys have any questions, you can throw last minute questions. Or if you want to say bye, I gotta get going after this. So yeah, that's it. So thank you guys for coming. Can we just thank my dog Coda? Because he is being such a good boy, aren't you? He's so well behaved. You're a good boy. Oh, he wants to go out on a WALK. Can't say that word. He's too smart. He's too clever. Oh yeah, you want to see him? Could I? Oh, don't be like that. Oh, this is my baby. All right, you guys. We're going to call it a day. So, those of you who are curious, there's tons of other videos. Really look at that McDonald's video, the comparisons between Japan and America. You'll be surprised. Or maybe not surprised. If you watch this video, then it'll all make sense, I promise. But yeah, you're so welcome. You guys are so welcome. And I will see you very, very soon. I'll be back for another video. I'm not sure when, but you guys know it never takes too long, so I'll be back soon enough. All right, you guys. Have a good day or a good night, and I will see you guys in the next one. Mwah. Say bye-bye. He's itching himself. Bye, you guys.